Comfortable white middle-class suburbanites benefit from capitalism and imperialism, so they'd rather vote Republican. Well, Mr. Alive Inside, I don't know your actual name. I sympathize with you. I didn't grow up in the suburbs. I actually grew up in a rural area. I grew up in a very small town. And at the time, the Iraq War was happening, and the people in my town were so supportive of it. And they told me, if you don't support this war, you need to go move to some other country. And these were working class folks. A lot of them worked at a jelly factory, and there was different working class facilities. There was like a company that made auto parts. These were people working in factories in my town. They loved the war. They loved George W. Bush, and they were super patriotic. I was against what was happening, and I felt very much the way you feel, Mr. Alive Inside, at that time. And I actually, believed a lot of this stuff, the third worldist narrative, this idea that, the working people in the USA are too bought off. And I was angry. I was very angry at that age. And I embraced kind of that new left thinking that's very common, in response to that attitude. But a lot has happened since then. Go to the suburban, communities throughout the USA right now. You'll see all these homes have been foreclosed, and people's jobs have gone away, and the standard of living has declined. The factories have closed down. Young people, the next generation in those suburbs, is desperately trying to find work. And their parents are saying, what's wrong with these millennials, these losers? We didn't even have a high school degree, and we were working in a factory making 20 bucks an hour. And these kids, what's wrong with them? They've got student debt and, 2 degrees, and they still can't get a job. And there's a lot is happening in middle America. And I don't think that's why, comfortable white suburbanites, voted for Republicans, because Donald Trump did not present himself in the last election as if he was an advocate of the status quo. He said, I'm going to stop meddling in countries around the world. He said, I'm going to focus on the USA. And he made kind of a populist appeal. And he said, the economy works for somebody else. I'm not for Trump. Trump is anti-immigrant. He's a bigot. Trump is supporting the police state and the vicious repression of African Americans. I'm not for Trump, but I'm telling you that middle America isn't what it used to be. There was a time in the USA, if you walked around and you said, hey, these wars are wrong, and somebody else, the economy functions to serve the rich and not the average Americans. There's a time that if you talk that way, the response that 90% of Americans would give you, they would say to you, if you think that, why don't you move to some other country? Because America is the greatest country in the world, and these wars are just for freedom. I remember those days. That's not how it is. Get out of your house, get out of your apartment, get out of wherever you're living. Go and talk to people. Go to talk to average Americans. They are against these wars now. They're against these wars. They feel like the economy is rigged for Wall Street. Americans are angry, and they have populist anti-establishment sentiments more than ever before in my lifetime. But what drives me mad is that right now it's people that are supposedly left that are defending the establishment. The biggest argument, I've heard all these liberals say, oh, Trump believes in conspiracy theories. Oh, Trump, he thinks that, he doesn't want to attack Syria. It's like the left have become the defenders of the establishment. Meanwhile, people that are mad at the establishment are rallying around Alex Jones, and it's a big mess. We need to show people that if you're mad about all these wars that are going on, if you're mad about the fact that you don't have good paying jobs, if you're mad about the fact that the government is spying on you and the police are killing people and getting away with it and our civil liberties are being taken away, then you need to oppose capitalism. You need to oppose the system where profits come before people. That's what we need to tell people. And that message just isn't out there. The left is rallying to defend the political establishment and accusing people who don't like it of being awful and transphobic or something like that. Meanwhile, the right is promoting this bigotry and just basically telling people, oh, if you're mad, you should hate immigrants and you should support the police and want them to beat up African Americans more. It's a mess. It's a big